hello everybody. My name is Ari Capotis. I'm Keystone Fly Girl. If you'd like any more information about my guide business, please go ahead and visit my standalone website, keystoneflygirl.com. I'm here today to talk about one of my favorite flies to fish. What this is a Rainbow Warrior Nymph. So I am a fan of nymphing. I'm a bigger fan of streamer fishing. But I'd have to say that the Rainbow Warrior Nymph is one of my top 5 go-tos. It's what you often hear people talk about when they say confidence flies. I would say Rainbow Warrior is definitely one of my confidence flies. So to tie it today, and just remember with all of the videos Fish USA puts out, you can always go down to the information about this video, and there's going to be links to click all the materials that I'm citing. But what I'm going to be using today is a size 14 jig hook. I think Mustad makes some good hooks, and these new boxes are really handy because you can just stack them right up and all the info is right there for you to see. We're going to be using a tungsten slotted bead. The tungsten slotted beads just fit a little bit better on these jig style hooks. If you're going to be tying on a traditional hook, I would stick with regular tungsten beads. For the body material, we're going to be using some Mirage tinsel. I think that the large size is appropriate not only because the original pattern calls for it, Lance Egan's original pattern calls for the wider tinsel, but it really just creates a more durable fly. We're going to be using some hot pink fluorescent thread and some sow scud. And last but not least, for the tail, we're actually going to be using some pheasant tail fibers. If you want to use something a little bit hardier, like some Coq de Leon, you're more than welcome to do that. But I'm a fan of the pheasant tail. So once you have put on the bead, and you're going to put the small hole onto the hook point first, get it secured and snug onto the jig part, okay? This bend of the hook here. I tied down the thread, and then I tied in about 5 pieces of pheasant tail fiber using some pinch wraps until I really got it secured. So now that I've done that, the next step for this nymph is actually going to be tying on the body. The body of it, as we discussed, is this Mirage opal tinsel. What I did is I cut about 3 inches of material. I am fortunate that my fly tying board actually has a, I guess it would be a burned in ruler. I have a 6-inch ruler in front of me right here. What I like to do is measure some of these materials before I put them on the hook. The more you get used to the appropriate sizes and making sure that the flies are proportioned correctly, you're going to save material, you're going to save time, and you're going to be a much more efficient fly tyer. So especially as you get started, or if you're unfamiliar with tying a nymph, definitely make sure to measure out the material you're using so you get some proportionality to your flies. So when I trimmed off 3 inches of the tinsel, see how it's at a little bit of an angle? That's going to help me to grab it a little better. I like to tie it in starting up here at the bead. Now, in order to get my thread to jump backwards, see I just gave that a little bit of a spin. Makes it a little bit easier with grabbing the material. All right, excellent. So, grab the material, I'm gonna cinch it in with my thread and walk it back close to where the tail is, okay? Now I'm going to take my thread back up to the bead, and I'm going to pull around my bobbin rest. Okay, so now I've got my tinsel. I need to be careful I don't slice it on this hook point here, so as you're rotating your vise around to get the body material on it, definitely take your time and pay attention. I'm partial to a little bit of a hot spot on the butt, so I don't cover that thread. If you want to cover it, you're more than welcome to. Now, see how this is overlapping onto itself as we're slowly moving forward? That's what's going to add to this fly's durability, and that's why using this large size tinsel is important. Now, if you don't like the way it wrapped, walk it back. All right, and I left myself just a little bit of room for a thorax. I am going to tie this off, but I'm going to try to tie this off towards the top of this hook shank, because what we're going to be using to create what looks like a little bit of an air bubble is this same material, okay? So I'm going to take a few wraps backwards. I'm going to make sure that this material is sitting on top of my hook shank, as it is right now. Excellent, so that's all looking good. Now I'm going to grab my sow scud dub, and remember with dubbing, less is more, especially when you're using a size 14 hook. Like, this looks to be too much to me. You can always add more. It's hard to take it off if you have too big of a dubbing noodle, okay? So I'm gonna start to rotate it around the hook thread and make my dubbing noodle. It's a little bit on the thinner side because, again, size 14 hook, not real big. So I'm wrapping. And I'm wrapping this material up to make sure this bead is snug. Now I'm going to pull forward this Mirage tinsel. It's directly on top of this bead now. Couple wraps, just 2, you don't need too many. Now I'm going to pull this back and I'm going to wrap in front. And I'm going to grab my whip finish tool, securely grab it, cinch it in there, perfect. Now I'm going to wrap around maybe 3 or 4 times and then tug on it a little bit, and then I'm going to do another whip finish. We lost it out of the vise a little bit. Okay, looking good there. So I'm going to trim off this thread. I'm going to grab some sharp scissors. I'm going to pull up on the Mirage tinsel and I'm going to trim it as tight as I can. And see how it gives it just a little bit of an extra flash up there? I think that that's important. So here we are with the finished, let me get it in the vise nice and neat. There we go. Finished Rainbow Warrior. Okay, so it's gonna ride like this, beaten on the bottom with that tungsten bead. So the very last step, just a little bit of hard head cement. Hit it with a little bit of the UV light. And there we have it, a finished Rainbow Warrior. Thank you.